The Great Depression by Megan McConnell. America had been on a high for so long and then all of a sudden it came crashing down. The Great Depression was the longest lasting economic downturn in the history of the Western industrialized world. It lasted from 1929 through 1939. During 1933, that's when America hit their lowest point. About 13 to 15 million people were out of jobs due to low industrial output. Many people lost their homes and jobs were scarce. Many people were forced to buy on credit, which put several people in debt. Meanwhile, bread lines, soup kitchens, and rising numbers of homeless people became more and more common in America's towns and cities. I think that the Great Depression had the most impact on the 20th century because it was such a devastation to America and such a shock to everybody. It was, in fact, 10 long years of misery for all of the United States. Those 10 years showed no mercy to America, Germany, and Britain. The Great Depression hit the countries the hardest in the 1930s and 1940s. America and Germany both had high unemployment rates. After the First World War, Germany's economy plummeted, but had support from the reparations that America gave to them. When the banks started closing, they immediately withdrew the loans they had made to Europe. Businesses closed, unemployment rose, and inflation was rampant. After World War I, Europe faced severe economic problems. Although economic depression wasn't new to Germany, however, the Great Depression helped solidify Joseph Stalin's grip on power. Stalin instituted a planned economy to help the crisis. His first five-year plan called for rapid industrialization and collectivization of small peasant farms under government control. Although Germany was hit hard by the Great Depression, the impact of the Wall Street crash forced American banks to end the new loans that had been funding the repayments under the Dawes Plan and the Young Plan. In 1932, 90% of German reparation payments were canceled. Germany and the United States wasn't the only country that was affected by the Great Depression. Africa, Asia, Australia, Europe, and North and South America all suffered from the economic collapse. International trade fell 30% as nations tried to protect their industries by raising tariffs on imported goods. But since 30 million people were unemployed around the world, money was scarce. During the war, Britain lost many of the markets for its industrial products to the United States and Japan, although Britain had troubles with its industrial and export sectors. This lasted until World War II occurred. France was also involved in the Great Depression, but because it had a more balanced economy than other nations, France didn't begin to feel the effects of the Depression until 1932. The Great Depression affected millions of people, from young to old. Many people were forced out of their homes due to lack of employment and money. In fact, people would often hitchhike, drive by car, or ride the rails in order to find some sort of employment. In Germany as well, people moved around and around looking for work and shelter. Mostly teenagers would ride the rails, but sometimes elderly and entire families would join. Many were trying to find a way to support themselves because several people had lost all their savings due to the banks closing. Because of this, people were trapped in debt. There were two factors that played a significant role in the beginning of the Great Depression. One factor being that there was a series of downturns in the economies of individual nations in the second half of the 1920s. The second factor that played a role in the upcoming of the Great Depression was the international crisis involving the U.S. stock market. The U.S. stock market was booming during the 1920s, but by 1928, American investors had begun to pull money out of Germany to invest it in the stock market. In October 1929, the U.S. stock market crashed and the prices of the stocks plunged. The government didn't know what to do and felt helpless in this crisis, and anything they did try didn't do any good. It only made matters worse. Some countries had a laissez-faire system, which was a belief that the government shouldn't interfere in the economy. However, government involvement was occurring even if that country did have the laissez-faire tradition. The outcome of the Great Depression varied. Many people lost their jobs, life savings, even their homes. People drowned in their debts, and there was a severe overproduction of products. President Hoover tried to reassure the nation by saying that recovery is just around the corner, but that was not the case. Along with the drought, farmers didn't have enough money or labor to keep their farm going, and many of them left the vegetables to rot out in the fields while other people starved. Unemployment and poverty hurt everyone, especially children, who would sometimes quit school to work and help their family survive. while many others died of malnourishment. The Great Depression spread like a disease throughout the entire world. The economic downturns led to labor unrest in many countries. The people lived in misery, and some saw suicide as their only solution. One unemployed person said, "Today, when I am experiencing this for the first time, I think that I should do away with myself, to take gas, jump into the river, or leap from a high place." Although, when World War II began, the need for weapons and new technology arose. Thus, employment began to disperse. The Great Depression led to economic growth and major changes in our government system. While the Great Depression was going on, the government changed rapidly. Before the Depression hit, the government did very little and sometimes nothing to help people financially. With the Depression came a change in this perception. President Roosevelt's New Deal made government responsible for helping people in many ways. These ways range from guaranteeing that they would not lose money they had deposited in banks to ensuring that they would have money to live on after they retired. In general, the New Deal brought on a new role for government, one in which the government did a great deal more to help individuals financially. President Roosevelt once said, I pledge myself, to a new deal for the American people. Let us all here assembled constitute ourselves prophets of a new order of competence and of courage. I think my event was the most important because it was such a long 10 years of suffering, but it led to something good. With Roosevelt as our president, the New Deal was created, which significantly helped people out financially. The government changed from not helping at all to being involved in helping the people. The Great Depression strengthened America and showed our ability to get through hard and inevitable times. All the long, painful, and devastating years were finally over, and there was hope on the horizon. The Great Depression changed the way the government operated in many countries, including Germany, America, and Britain. And these are my MLA sites.